张理事长啊，各位贵宾，还有我们的主讲者 Dr. Kim 啊，大家早安啊。那我们这个时间啊是专题演讲啊，那我们有1个半小时这个时间啊。那刚刚跟 Dr. Kim 提到我们大概有1个多小时的讲演时间，然后留一些时间呢给大家 Q&A。这样的时间分配应该还好吧哈 ？OK， it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Kim. Dr. Kim come from Korea, and he's in Research Institute of Korea Special Education. It's a director and AFID General Director 我们这个主题了哈是非常重要的哈。The topic presented will talk with the temporary practice and issue in Korea inclusive education 哈。那我想这个主题呢，我们借这个机会来了解韩国的融合教育的实务怎么做啊？我想对我们国内啊，或者对亚太地区啊，应该都会有所帮助哈。所以我们就欢迎哈 ，Let us welcome Dr. Kim.
Okay. Good morning. It is a very nice Saturday morning, but another hot day. Very hot to me. It is my pleasure to be here, have a presentation at the first conference, Asia Pacific Conference on Inclusive Education in Taipei, hosted by the Special Education Center. Thanks for inviting me here. Especially, I am very pleased. This conference is hosted by Taiwan and the participation from leading countries in Asia like Taiwan, China, Japan, and Korea. Actually, 10 years ago, I was the general director in the Korea Institute of Special Education. We invited Dr. Wu from Taiwan and Hong Kong and Japan and Korea. We hold same kind of conference on inclusive education. We first hosted by Korea, second year from Hong Kong, then stopped. But finally, Taiwan hosted this conference. Thank you again for your invitation. Maybe from now on, no more stuff. It continue on discuss about inclusive education among the leading countries in Asia. We need that. And maybe inclusive education is a very hot topic in Korea. We implemented this inclusive education for over 30 years, but still we have the same problems. Actually and frankly, honestly with you, our inclusive education is not promoted not much, same, little bit by little bit. So today I'm gonna bring my topic is contemporary practice and issues in Korea inclusive education. I mentioned I take more time on the critics about we have our problems and implementation in inclusive education in Korea. Maybe you have the same problems. Today I want to exchange our problems with you, to discuss with you. And if you have the same kind of problems, we may talk about it. And there is no solution for the problems I bring today. But we have to think about it, how to do it for in future. Especially inclusive education is, I feel very sorry to say this one, but the import from Western countries, I can say. But at this time, before too late, we have to do in Korea case, we have to find our own inclusive education, not just far from the Western countries, but we have to find our way. Yesterday, I heard from Dr. Deng, as you have some problems in doing the inclusive education in China. I felt the same problems we have. Maybe today I bring same problems here, but let's discuss about it. Therefore, the purpose of this presentation is to critically examine the current implementation of inclusive education in Korea, focused on the first dimension about definition of inclusive education in Korea. And next, I'll introduce the current practices, laws and regulations, and future challenges in implementing inclusion in Korea. To meet this end, first find the definition of education, inclusive education in Korea, then introduce laws and regulations and major policies and national plans. We have several national plans, 5-year plans I'll introduce to you. And current practice and issues regarding strengthening special education, not only special education, and also inclusive education in Korea. Let's just briefly say UNESCO definition of inclusive education. A process of strengthening the capacity of an education system to reach out to all learners. So, inclusive education, which current special education is oriented toward, is a part of the effort to guarantee the right to learn without discrimination for students with disabilities. This is a UNESCO general definition of inclusive education. Now in Korea, the inclusive education was oriented from special classroom in regular schools. Actually, after 1979, the enacted Act on Special Education Promotion, first we built special classrooms, 1979. It's very early. So maybe our inclusive education start 1979, very long time ago. So in 1979, special classrooms was established at the elementary schools to expand the educational opportunities for students with special education needs. And also, if needed, at the time, only special classroom is elementary school. But the act mentioned in future, maybe if we needed, we built special classroom in the middle and high school also. So inclusive education has become a center of attention and has supported at the national level in Korea since the promotion of education for the handicapped was amended in 1994. This is the cornerstone of special education in Korea. So it takes about 20 years, maybe 15 years, to mention about the inclusive education more strongly. So he said, in 1994, was by the revised law in 1994, inclusive education is generally linked to a process of SEN students in special classrooms and regular classrooms at general schools. So the law in 1994 mentioned about built special classroom and also regular classroom in general schools. It's different. Special classroom is in regular schools, is kind of another special schools in general schools. I say again, special classrooms is kind of another special schools in the general schools. 1979, since 1979, special classroom is like do the same role of the special schools, but it's only it's just in the general schools. But 1994, the act strongly stated that built regular classroom in regular schools, not only special classroom, regular classroom. We call it, this one is inclusive classrooms. It's total inclusion. is implemented in general schools. I'll explain it. If you don't understand, just forget it, okay? I'll explain again to you. So, in 1994, defining inclusive education is to expand and provide fair and appropriate special education opportunities to students who require special education according to individual capabilities and the degree of disabilities, to introduce the latest special education method to improve quality of the special education, and to expand special education support systems. From this time, the 1994, inclusive education became part of the focused effort to guarantee the right to learn without discrimination for students with special need. SEN, now SEN students, is we call it. So like UNESCO definition in 2009, it's almost the same. But recently, special education law in 2007 restated the definition of inclusion. Inclusive education is that SEN students receive education which is appropriated with individualized education needs, with peers in inclusive setting, either special classroom or regular classrooms, without discrimination of disabilities. Now, SEN students receive, since the 2007, now SEN students receive education all day or partially at special classroom. But some mild SEN students receive education all day at regular classroom. I said it's called full-time inclusive education and inclusive settings. We call it. So in general schools, special classroom, one is special classroom, partially inclusive education. Full-day inclusive education is implemented in inclusive classrooms. So in general school, two way inclusive education. One is the special classroom, the other one is inclusive classroom. Inclusive classroom is full-time inclusion. Let's go back to the major laws and regulations. History of the amendment of major Korea's special education laws and regulation is divided into 4 periods. First period is from 1948, when Korea's constitutional law was enacted and announced, to the middle of the 1975. Second period is from later part of the 1970s to the end of the 1980s. During this period, the Act on the Promotion of Education for Handicapped was enacted, which was the first special law enacted in Korea. So in second period, 1977, the first special education law was acted. The third period during 1990s and the fourth period is since the year of 2000 to present. I'll briefly introduce the major laws and regulations. The first period, the Korean constitutional law, which was enacted and announced in 1948, states all citizens have equal right to receive education according to their capabilities. And the law also states all people have a right to receive special education, equal education. At least elementary education is compulsory and free. The Constitution proclaims providing proper education to every individual without discrimination. Because of these provisions, which later on became the basis for the setting up the compulsory education system, students with disabilities were able to receive 6 years of elementary education between age to age 12. But in 1977, a special education law called the Act on the Promotion of Education for the Handicapped was enacted, which laid a strong foundation for carrying out special education. The law was formulated to promote special education for the first time in Korea. So 1977 is first law. Since then, the law has become the basis for the progression of special education policies. The enforcement decrees of the Act on the Promotion of Education for the Handicapped was formulated in 1978 and went into effect on 1979. The Education Act on the Promotion of Education for the Handicapped was enacted in 1977, I said. But the special education was carried out stable growth. But in 1981, Education Act, which were related to special education, were amended. So 1981 is the General Education Act. But this act mentioned about special education first time in general education law and regulations. 1977 and 79, the special education law was acted. But 1981 is general education law. It's first time mentioned about special education, very specifically. For example, the revision state, the purpose of special schools are, mentioned about the purpose of special schools are provide instruction related to the skills needed their daily lives and knowledge, and like mentioned about provide special education to the disabled people for their living lives, for their skills. So it to education, same kind of provide the same kind of similar education to the disabled people at elementary and middle and high school. So general education law proclaimed that no discrimination to the disabled people. Disabled people, students can join the classroom with regular peers. Provide similar education to them. Provide similar exam to them. So guarantee the right of the learning to provide to the disabled students. Now, from that is about, let's see, but at the time actually provide similar education to not just disabled people. It's like they focused on, rather than disabled students, focused on low achiever, underachiever, low achiever, who were very mild ID students. So not the severe or moderate disabled students, they are still in special schools. They're isolated. Understand? Yeah. But actually special education is like growing. We see the growth since the 1992 or since the 1994. So in the third period, the Act on the Promotion of Education for the Handicapped went through major revision in 1992. So 1979 law was revised very much in 1992 and 1994. So in 1992, students from special schools and special classrooms can receive training, specialized skills by extending educational terms more than 1 year after high school. So before the 1994, only SEL students from age 18, by the 7 to 18 is they can receive education. But after graduation from high school, also special schools and special classrooms provide education, especially job skills to the disabled persons. So extend the education. Now in 1994, I said this period is cornerstone of special education in Korea, was thus actively meet rapidly increasing demands for inclusive education. So 1994 law is really revised because of the demands of inclusive education. So with in the middle of the 1990s, special education was being offered not only in special schools and special classrooms, but also at regular classrooms. I mean, inclusive classrooms and full-time inclusion. The prevalence of students with disabilities was increasing every year, and students with mild disabilities were progressively assigned to special classrooms in inclusive settings rather than special schools. Now, before that, the number of students in special school is more than number of students in special classroom. But after 1994 law, the more students was assigned to special classrooms and regular classrooms. The number is different now, changing. So as a result, teacher in regular classrooms, regular teachers started to be aware of strengthening of inclusive education. Not only regular teachers. Before that, regular teachers ignore or avoid disabled students. But law strongly asks regular teachers should be aware of their disabilities and inclusive education. Same thing asked to the special teachers. Special teachers only they take care of disabled students in special schools, nothing of inclusive education. But since the 1994 law, also special education teachers, they recognize inclusive education is very important. Maybe it's productive to the disabled students. Let's go to the major plans. At the same time, about the same period, the government set up the major plans. So now I introduce the major national plans. Since the enactment and amendment of special education laws and regulations in 1994, during last 20 years, every 5 years, we set up the master plans for promoting quantity and quality, both in special education and inclusive education. So the 5-year special education development plan is from 1999 to 2001. 5 years was set up to cultivate special education knowledge to general school teachers, expanding inclusive classrooms, and strengthening special education in service to inclusive classroom teachers. So actually inclusive classroom teachers, some teachers, not most of teachers in Korea, to get the promotion, some incentives. So regular teachers move to inclusive classrooms. So they got more point for promotion. So usually some experienced teachers without any special education background, any courses they take, they just go to the regular classroom, inclusive classrooms, to get the point for the promotion. It happened actually. So now 5-year plan asks to all the general teachers is taking service training, at least 30 hours. Now extended 60 hours. So inclusive education, inclusive classroom teacher should take 60 credit of special education course, especially about the curriculum or contents on the not only the assessment of disabled children and also behavior modification, behavior management, those kind of topics. They should take the courses. So this 5-year special education development plan mentioned it. And also some other provide itinerary education to SDN students in general schools. So before that, provide itinerary education to the students at special schools only, but now expand to the general schools because inclusive education, it happened in general schools. So provide services education to those students at regular schools. So assigning SEN students in regular classrooms precedence over all other assignments. So first assignment choice is general classroom. If it's not possible, then go down special classrooms. Not possible, then special schools. Before that, we first assign disabled students to the special schools first. Special school first. Now, general classroom first, assignment, then go down. And also granting extra promotion benefit to inclusive classroom teacher. This is a negative and positive either way. So, from granting extra promotion benefit to the teacher in general classrooms, and inclusive classrooms, so more teachers are interested in special education, inclusive education, and more teachers, general teachers. But the other way, on the other hand, some teachers without any background of special education, information, they just want to go to that classroom, be a teacher. So it's either way, some good, some bad. Second 5-year comprehension framework of special education from 2003 to 2007. So second one is about strengthening the also obligation. Now, obligation of a general teacher in teaching SEN students. I mentioned general teacher usually ignore the responsibility of teaching disabled students. Now, obligation of general teacher in teaching SEN students. And every preliminary teachers in elementary and secondary school, to be a teacher, they should take at least over 2 credits in the special education course, in the undergraduate course, in the undergraduate curriculum. So, and also requiring disability awareness programs, because I mentioned negative effect of the inclusive education in Korea is too much competition in schools. So peers, the non-disabled students, they don't like, disabled students come to their classroom, have a start together. No, because of too much competition. So every student in Korea is want to go to enter the college, university. How about Taiwan? What percentage of the high school graduate go to college? Huh? $50, $60? No. Anybody in Taiwan? How many percentage? 50, 60? How about Japan? Dr. Masa, 50%. 50%. In Korea? Maybe Hong Kong is higher, but in Korea, no. 18. In Korea is 80. More than 80% of the high school graduate go to the college, enter the college. 75%. It's very high. Taiwan is very high. Competitive countries like us, yeah. Yeah, too much pressure to them. So students in high school, they want to study go to college. But the disabled students come to their classroom, no more study anymore, mess up. So they really hate. So we provide disability awareness program to non-disabled students every Friday, as 2 hours for the program or video program or some good story about disabled students. Yeah. But most of the 5-year plan is for the strengthening the inclusive education, working with the disabled students with the non-disabled students. Now, 2007 is about 10 years ago. This most recent law, special education law in Korea, is during the first period of 2007, the major revision of 1994 law was conducted to stress the importance of the full inclusive education and early special education and the continuing education to the disabled persons and persons with special education needs. The title of the law is Special Education Laws for the Disabled Person, ETC. It's strange, isn't it? It's very strange. It is etc. There's no law named like this one. The first time we actually it's the government decided to put the ETC. So we was laughing actually. We were laughing. So, but parents asked this one because in Korea, because of stigma, the students with mild disabilities, they don't want to be classified disabled students. So those students are kind of abandoned, no service at all. So parents of with the mild disabled students, they ask ETC. Even my child, my student, my son is not classified disabled students. We need some services. We need some service provided from government. So put the ETC means not only the disabled students, SEN students, but also close to disabled students, not classified as disabled, but special education need, student with special education need, then we need this the government to provide service. That's why ETC. That's why disabled person and ETC, etc. It includes infant, adult too. Infant, less than 3 years old, government, Ministry of Education provide special education service to them. Even they are not classified disabled child. So that's why I put the ETC. The law was named Special Education Law for the Disabled Person, etc. and focus following items: strengthening responsibility. Other federal government has controlled the special education budget and programs in Korea. But after 2007, local government also have the same responsibility to providing education services to the disabled student and persons, and strengthening early special education for infant and toddlers, higher education and continuing education, and developing appropriate free special education service delivery systems. And last, decreasing the number of students per classroom. And Dr. Chang, I'm sorry to ask too many questions to you, but how many students in the classrooms now? Maybe secondary school, one class. How many students? 25. Among them is how many disabled students? And inclusive setting. Yeah, special students. Yeah. 1 or 2. Yeah, see. So over 25. Now actually Korea is over 30 students, 35, 30 students. Before that is one classroom. Now so decreasing the number of students. 40, yeah, China is big population, it's big countries. You're small. But anyway, so we now to do the inclusive education to effectively, especially to not only disabled students, but also non-disabled students, we have to decrease the number of the students per classroom. So now reduced to 25, 24, so about same size of this one. But it took a lot of money. Yeah, a lot of money. Do you know also budget of the allocation to the special education? Comparing the general education. Percentage of the budget? 5? Oh, more than 3. Korea is less than 3. So after decreasing the number of, very close to 3% of the budget of general education. 5%, that's great. Yeah, I admire Taiwan. Yes. Okay. The last one is 30 year. So by the 2012 proclaimed expand individualized special itinerary education related service in SEN students. We already mentioned of the 2007 law mentioned of itinerary education. But it's not, without any budget or economical support, it's not working very well. So actually 5 years plan is from budget, the government budget department. So they provide money to provide itinerary education, related service of kind of therapeutic services to the SEN students in general schools. Usually provide these services at home. So also strengthening special education professionalism and inclusive education capacity to special education teachers. So inclusive education is responsibility of inclusive education, not only for general teacher, also special education teachers. And also providing, let's say, providing disability awareness program to all cities. Question? Okay. The meaning is like at general schools, we provide just group education, while some separate education is one-to-one education. But itinerary education is more professionals come to classroom, general classroom. More professionals. For best example about like therapist, physical therapist, language therapist. Those are the best example. They come to general schools, provide therapeutic services to them. But it happened in only special schools. Some moderate or severe disabled students now expand to the mild student too. Special language therapeutic support is provided. Is there answer to your question? Okay. No, one more is by first year. So this is all is like the major plans for the strengthening inclusive education. It's like this way, more expand, like. But one thing is, third one is 2017. We are now working on the Korea inclusive education model. Like I mentioned at the first part of my presentation, we may think about our own inclusive education, not just copy from Western countries. We do think about our Korean inclusive education, appropriate with our culture, our society. So we are developing Korea inclusive model to the each district, local areas. We're gonna evaluate those models, and by the 2017, year of 2017, the year after next year, okay, like 2017, we evaluate those Korean inclusive education model, and each school, we evaluate the best or very productive inclusive education model. We're gonna do the as a standard and to the disseminate all the nation. So we evaluate. We are working for the model, and we evaluate the model 2017. Also cultivating inclusive education teachers at so far is Department of Special Education in the college. They cultivate only Department of Special Education. They cultivate teachers, special education teachers, bachelor degree or master degree from the Department of Special Education. But now, regular university, general university, in elementary university, for elementary, university for the elementary teacher, they are cultivate special education teacher in elementary school. So, kind of, I'm from the Department of Special Education, but now Department of Inclusive Education is established at some colleges. They provide certification of inclusive education teachers. So we have struggled a lot for last 5 years, but finally we lost. So other department in university, they established Department of Inclusive Education. So they cultivate inclusive education teacher in elementary school only, not secondary, Still, Department of Special Education cultivate train secondary special education teachers. But elementary to expand to the other university too. It's a big issues actually, Still some problems, but anyway, already some colleges have a department of inclusive education in elementary. It's possible to hire Taiwan, or I don't know. No. Okay. I don't know which way is good or not, but finally we decided to do that way for strengthening inclusive education. Oh, let's see. I'm maybe move to the direction of the Korea special education policy. In this part, so far I introduced the major laws and regulations and policies in Korea for strengthening inclusive education. From now, I'll introduce present about the current state of Korean special education and data and statistics. And second, with the major special education policies and from the government data on 2014, last year. So, that's the statistics. Currently, there are a total of 87,278 students with disabilities educated at special schools and general schools. As you can see, during the last 7 years, 3,000 students have gradually increased every year. So right now, over 87,000 students. How many disabled students educated in Taiwan? This is a percentage. Later I'm going to tell 1.25%. Prevalence is 1.25, very small. I said budget is close to 3%, but the prevalence is small. I'll tell you the reason, because of stigma, actually stigma. Parents of disabled students, they don't want their sons or daughters to be assigned in special schools or special classrooms. Still we have a problem with stigma. Anyway, 87,000, more than 87,000. More than that in Taiwan? Or not? Oh, I see. Okay. So 87 is small, still small. Still, many students, many students abandoned or isolated without any classification of special education, without any service, any special education services. So, see, maybe prevalence is from 2012, 2013, every year even. Now, right now, 2014 is 1.25%. Is during last year, at least 0.05% has gradually increased every year. But still, I said small percentage. I think maybe double up, at least double. But government said almost every student was classified already. But I'm not agree with that. I think it's frankly, maybe more than 50% of students is now educated. So it's too bad, and I feel shame about that. Non-placement, the total of 8,727 disabled students receive education at general and special schools. Among them, more than 25,000, that is about 30% of disabled students, receive special education at special schools. So 30% is special schools. More than 45,000, about 53% of disabled students receive inclusive education in special classrooms. And more than 15,648, about 18% of disabled students are in regular classroom settings. I mean, inclusive education, full inclusion. Full inclusion is 18%. Therefore, approximately over 70% of students with disabilities are exposed to inclusive education, either in special classroom or regular classrooms at general schools. And you can see more students with disabilities are placed to general schools. Say comparing the special school and general schools, and actually the increase is in special classrooms, still special classrooms, rather than general classroom. General classroom is a little bit, comparing the last year, a little bit decrease. The more increase in special classrooms. Because in the general classroom, I think like in China, so parents of disabled students, they think their children don't get enough benefit from the general school, general classrooms with non-disabled students. They are still like isolated, get not too good special education services. More special education services they think can provide in special classrooms rather than general classrooms. So general classroom is, I said, full-time inclusive education, full-time, every day, every hours, working with non-disabled students. But special classrooms, partially. Some severe disabled students whole day in special classroom, or 2 or 3 hours only in special classroom and go back to the regular classroom. But the student in general schools all belongs to general teachers. And maybe you may question about special education support center. Special education support center is provide special education and related service to them at their home. It's like a therapeutic services, yeah? And related service. That is one of the reasons increasing the number of the disabled students supported from special education center. Overall, the disabled students in secondary schools are slightly getting increased and comparing the number of disabled students in elementary schools. However, problems here, many SEN students in elementary schools, when they move up to the middle school, are disappeared. You understand? The number of elementary number of disabled students in elementary is reduced to about 10,000 students disappeared in the middle school. Can you catch it? Can you catch it? Number of students is, like from elementary to the middle school. It happened in Taiwan too. But anyway, after graduation, maybe 3 years ago, 3 years ago, most of students from elementary school, many students, even they were classified mild disabilities, they don't want to go to the special, these classified disabled students. Because from the middle school, they have to think about going to the college. In Korea, college doesn't accept students with disability, especially about problem in the brain, like disabilities, developmental disabilities. In Korea, in college, only physically handicapped and visually impaired, hearing impaired, sensory impaired. Those students are in the college, but the developmental delays, like such as LD, ID, or autism, or ED, those students, we don't know that in college, no. But in the future, maybe college, maybe take most disabled students, but up to now, yes, we provide education to them, only extension program, no degree, no department, no degree, just provide education. So that's why from the middle school, parents think, oh, no more we classified special disabled students. Now my child, even without any special services, my child be specified as a normal student to go to the college, prepared to go to the college. Yeah. So details, infant with disabilities. Infant is usually, they get education and related service from the special education support center. They are not formally assigned to the general schools. Only special school, they have some daycare center, for the infant and toddlers with disabilities. From kindergarten, it's increased from 3,675 in 2012 to 4,219 in 2014. 15% increased. Most increasing appeared in special class at general schools. Elementary school, yes. The number of students at elementary schools has not changed much. It is stable. More students are getting assigned in inclusive classrooms at general schools. Those students are full-time inclusive settings. Students, middle school, I said. In the middle school, the number of students have not changed much. It is also stable. But at this table, you can see the number of disabled students are getting slightly increased in special schools, whereas the number of students in general schools are slightly decreasing. The reason? Some parents want their students to just give up the special education service, but some parents, they send their children to special schools to receive more job skills or job education. General schools, they don't provide job preparation skills or education, but special schools provide. Those, they send first elementary school in the inclusive settings, then in the middle, when we go up to the middle school, they change the schools from general to the special school because preparation of a job or something else. High school, the number of students have increased 6% from 2012 to 2014. From this table, you can see the most increase is present in special classroom also, like middle school. Post-secondary school education is provided by special schools and special classroom, most from the special schools, because it's really professional job training after high school graduation, but not college. It's not college. College level, it's high school level. So high school provide 1 to 3 years job training programs to the disabled students. It's increase a lot, Now, so by the age of 21, the government provide education and services to disabled students. Current trend, which type of disabilities I mentioned? We have, let's see, the categories, main categories: VI, visual impaired, hearing impaired, mental retardation. We still use the mental retardation rather than intellectual disabilities, but we will change with ID. But anyway, MR, PD is physical disabilities, emotional and behavioral disorders, communication disorder, and learning disability, health, and last one is developmental delays, not classified other disabilities, some developmental delays. So as you can see, I'll explain each category of the type of the disabilities in details. But as you can see, MR is big population comparing the other disabilities, and PD also. Maybe you may CD also recently. CD is communication disorder. It's good, Now we find more communication disorder problems, And maybe you CD. I mean the LD is surprise to you. We have a small percentage of LD students among. I'll explain it again too. Let's go to the details. 2.4% of disabled students have visual impaired. In Korea, most students with VI are educated at special schools. with regular curriculum. They are educated at special schools, not special classrooms or regular classrooms. One of the main reasons for this is that, so far, students with VI, visual impaired, think they can have more educational benefits from their own environment with Braille textbooks and especially acupuncture and massage education is provided from the special schools, not from the regular schools. So that's the reason is they are educated. They want to be educated at special schools rather than general schools. So in Korea, as a student who is visually impaired, they are educated separate, not inclusive settings. Some of them, but many of them are educated in separated settings in special schools. And after get education of acupuncture or massage program, they get certification from the special school. Then later on, after graduation, they can get a job. So that's why they prefer to go to the special schools rather than general schools. But on the other hand, the hearing impaired, most students are educated in inclusive settings at general schools. And some of them is special school support center. But because the reason is, recently, actually hearing impaired students is they are educated in special schools, but nowadays, assistive technology and cochlear implant is developed very rapidly. So students in the general schools, most of them have some cochlear implant and some hearing aid. So hearing impaired students are really rapidly increased, educated in regular classrooms, comparing the other disabilities. MR, still some of them special schools, but in a special classroom. So actually MR is a very mild MR is assigned to the special classroom. But nowadays, inclusive education is getting more and more. The ID students get benefit from the inclusive education. They move from special school to general school more and more. Last 3 years, very rapidly increased. But, about 55% of the disabled students are ID and MR. Second largest disabled students is PD. Approximately 70% of PD students are educated in inclusive settings at general schools. ED and PD, also most of them are educated in special classrooms at general schools. And CD, over 10% of disabled students have a CD, communication disorder, is most increased type of disabilities in these years, last 5 years, most increased in CD in Korea. They are assigned to special school and special classroom rather than regular classrooms because there are communication problems. It's also a problem with the teachers and peers. So CD is it's not severe or moderate disabled, but they prefer to be educated in special schools. CD. Some are in hearing impaired schools. Most of them in special schools anyway, rather than regular classrooms. Autism. Mostly assigned to inclusive settings and general schools. Its prevalence is autism is only 2.3% of the disabled students are assigned to autism and classified in autism. LD. My major is LD, but LD is a big problem in Korea. See, other countries like Taiwan, maybe prevalence or the percentage close to 50%, maybe 40 or 50. Second. MR is first, the second. What's the percentage of about disabled people among 3 to 5? Yes, 30 something. Yeah. Prevalence, yeah, that's right. But it's among disabled students, LDs in Korea is only 3.9%, less than 4% among the disabled students. Very small. It's strange. Small, yeah. Yeah. MR is 50, close to 50%, yeah, about among the disabled students here. Overall, I mean, yeah, I said it's right now is only. I said, but government said over 80 or something like percent, is classified as disabled students in Korea, educated in special school and special classrooms. But I think about half of the disabled students, only they got education. Only they got 50% of disabled students in our countries. I mean, 50% is educated, 50% is not classified disabled students. So it's small, yeah. That's why I feel very ashamed of that, yeah. But yeah, still, yeah. Parents, still parents, they think more. I think they are not much interested in to get special services from the government, special education, rather than they take their child at home, give private education. If they have rich or some money, they teach themselves. Or poor person ignored. The reason is stigma. Stigma is the big problem in Korea because based on the competition. So it may surprise about our number of the students is very low. Yeah, I think, but it's I worked for the government for 4 years, but at the time is secret, secret. But I can say that only 50% of the disabled students is identified and educated. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. But LD is in near future it will be increased. So far, as I heard, Taiwan used RTI to classify the LD. Actually, last 5 years we did too, but we used the RTI to classify LDs. Less LD is classified. Understand? Because teachers, they don't want to spend time for provide RTI program to them, classified after schools. It's burden to the teacher. So they classified even LD students, they classified ED or autism or some other categories. So last year, actually this year, government and the professors major in LD, we reduce, lessen the classification requirement. Before this, last year, we used RTI to classify LD, but now we give up the RTI. Only achievement, deviation of achievement score and IQ score, like 16% below the 16 percentile of the achievement, then we classify the LD. So from now on, maybe LD prevalence or number of students of LD will increase in future. But so far, it's very small. Based on also is a stigma. The parents of LD students, they don't want their children be classified as special education students. So go to college or something else. So in the stigma is not a problem in Taiwan. You have some problem with this one, but maybe Korea is very, very, very much big problem. And the health problems. with the physical increase, cancer, diabetes, or liver problems. So usually they are educated at hospitals. DD, developmental disabilities. Those students are slow learner or underachiever. Okay, I'll skip more and more. So we changed compulsory education. It's now changed to 2009 to 2012. Compulsory education is middle school and elementary to extend to the high school and kindergarten. Now extended the age of the lower 4 years old in 2011 and 2012. So far, from 3 years to 17 years is compulsory education. And also change the expansion of compulsory education based on that. So for more than 14,000 classes of special education built, established 60 classes for infant, 31 hospital schools. This is like the health problems, children. So child care centers for infant. And also 500, built 500 special classrooms, and so on. The Special Education Support Center, we established at the local office at 125. They provide special and therapeutic service, itinerary education to the students with disabilities. Usually, occupational therapy, psychological, language, or physical therapeutic services. So, rural special support center is like this one. So, assessing, diagnosing, provide special education, find more and more infant special education applicants in advance. So, training teachers also, and so on. Nowadays, not only schools, but special education support center is great role to provide services to the disabled students. So extended from 2009 to 2013, K to 12, all students get services from the special education support center. It's kind of one-to-one service, I said already. Okay, during the last year, 10 years, so more professionals. Maybe I jumped the policy changed like this way. So enterprising service, so for the job and lifelong education is extended to the adult especially. So now, actually the actual problem, discuss the current problem in implementing inclusive education. First, as more general students and as more established at the elementary school level, which has made it difficult to follow on with special and inclusive education as students progress to higher level. In 2014, for example, among the total of over 9,000 special classrooms, there are 63% of them in elementary school. Only 21% in middle school, 13% of the high school. This fact reveals that inclusive education is primarily conducted in elementary school only. It should also be pointed out that the lack of opportunities for students with special needs result in a small percentage of students continuing their education past elementary schools. The balance of inclusive placement SEN students also a problem. Most of the students with developmental disabilities, for example, MR, ED, BD, LD, autism, receive instruction in special classrooms. Only a few students visual handicap, I said. Visually impaired, those are education at special schools, not inclusive settings. So there's some gap between the category of disabilities. Not all the disabled students get the inclusive education. Some disability type, like VI, or the educated in isolated settings. Another problem in the SCN students receive education in partial inclusive setting. That is, they are all day or most of the time in the special classroom. The students who are assigned to special classroom in regular school are most of the time receiving education taught by the special teachers only. That is, in reality, those students in special classrooms are not included, do not receive actual inclusive education from regular classroom programs. Curriculum is a problem, so we need working for the curriculum modification. So we are working for the one curriculum for all. Now we're developing now at the stage. Diversifying supporting personnel. We are to do the good or effective inclusive education. We need teachers, general teachers, special education teachers, paraprofessionals, other related services. But like a multidisciplinary team, but we need those people, helpers, supporting personnel, but lack of the one. And modifying evaluation is necessary to manage students' progress and improvement. Evaluation methods should be differentiated to the type and the level of disabilities. Now I discuss the positive factors to implement inclusive education. Parents of children with disabilities presented great interest and enthusiasm for inclusive education, although this could place an overwhelming amount of responsibility and pressure on the teachers. The teacher would need to face up with these challenges. Is the stimulus for improvement. In fact, Korean parents' enthusiasm for their children's education appeared to be strong and might be supportive for the active inclusive education for SEN students. Second, national public policy had set up support system, including an increase of professionals to expand the practice of inclusive education in country. So third one is the attitude of the both special and regular education teachers toward inclusive education have changed positively and actively little by little. In the past, regular education teachers used to ignore the responsibility of providing individual education for children with special need. This tendency, however, has been getting changed along with the professional knowledge and greater understanding of children with disability obtained by teachers through the pre-service, in-service training for education support in inclusion. So let's see the negative factors. It's positive. Negative factors, maybe positive factors has contributed to the practicing inclusive education at times. On the other hand, worked as barriers for the inclusive education in Korea. For example, if parents' enthusiasm appeared to be too strong, teacher and other staff at school got too much pressure to educate SEN students. It is referred as abnormal enthusiasm. First, although the young children have a relatively positive attitudes on being the same school setting with the children who have special needs, as they age, they're getting old, their attitude may become rather negative. The pressure and responsibility associated with inclusive education increased as the pressure and responsibility on students to achieve excellent academic performance increased in secondary schools. This is because Korean education and Korean students are very competitive in terms of academic achievement, and thus these students have high levels of psychological pressure. Consequently, this makes it impossible to incorporate inclusive education in high school curriculum activities, which in reality are frequently changed due to the condition of college entrance examination. And the successful practice of inclusive education have many limitations due to the lack of experience in managing appropriate curriculum and development various programs to meet the individual education need. Inclusive education is specific practical issues rather than ideology. as Dr. Wu yesterday mentioned about, inclusion is no more ideology. It's a practical issue right now. So I agree with them. Thus, diverse curriculum, materials, and high level of professional qualification are necessities to successful practice of inclusive education. Issues remain on providing regular curriculum practiced in 1st through 10th grade as instructed by the national basic curriculum, but we need this one used for the modified based on the individualized education, but it burden to the teacher. Nationally, we have to develop the one curriculum for all. Third, in practicing inclusive education, insufficient understanding and inactive participation from staff of regular schools, especially the lack of leadership from the principals. Principals still in Korea has a power to change the system, but principals, they lack of the insufficient understanding about the disabilities. So based on the interviews with the individual teachers, indication of the positive aspect and the existing barriers to the practice of inclusive education was discussed. As mentioned earlier, positive and negative factors in practice of inclusive education coexist at the same time. Coincidentally, the positive factors can turn into negative factors, vice versa. For this reason, we must focus on securing the positive factors and minimizing the negative factors in order to achieve the successful practice of inclusive education. Now move to challenges. We have to change the competition-oriented school culture and inclusive education to the competence-driven to becoming the cooperative and human-centered. I said in Korea, it's too much competitive. The elitism is it happened in Taiwan, Hong Kong, or China. Elite has prevailed over the nation up to now. One of the major reasons for this occurrence might have been caused by incomprehensible aspiration from parents. This has affected the school system in Korea, changed the class education more and more to exam exist only. No education. It happened in Korea. Always exam, competition. With this problem is, inclusive education cannot be successfully implemented in the classroom so far. Practice of cooperation between the teachers, especially special education teacher working in the special and general education teacher working together, and also evolution of teacher education preparation for inclusion. Maybe I'll move to I have only 4 minutes left, so I'll move to conclusion. So you may read it. No, I'll read it for you quickly. Even our experience in special education is not long in public education system. Inclusive education for SEN students has been a center of attention at the national level in Korea since the middle of the 1990s. Since then, Korea educators and administrators have put emphasis on revision and regulation of special education policies, guarantee the right of the students with the special education needs to learn, and fostering the quality of regular and special education teachers to strengthen inclusive education. While these efforts have led to progress supporting inclusive education, however, there is still much to be achieved in inclusive education in Korea. To meet this end, we need to transform the existing climate of the schools from the competition-driven to becoming cooperative and human-centered. Strong leadership from principals and administrators in implementing inclusive education and implementing disability awareness program at national level to improve social perception. And in practice, there are several matters that require change, including a polished collaboration based on the partnership between regular and special education teachers, positive attitudes, perception toward the students with disabilities, and providing pre-service and in-service education, training to promote special education, inclusive education. These challenges has been complicated issues of long-standing in the practice. However, every year, more students with special education needs want to participate in inclusive education. One of the reasons for increase is that regular and special education teachers, administrators, parents believe is that inclusive education is a worthwhile idea for the education student with special education need. Last conclusion. The effectiveness of Korean education in Korea depends upon the social, cultural, political, and economical environment. Korean culture has historically been influenced by Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism. With this influence, the healthy and cooperative concern on people with disabilities is great, and the sense of family and community is strong. Although the history of special education in Korea has not been long, we expect a dynamic empowerment in the practice of inclusion as much as in the practical and economic development in Korea. Thanks for listening. I close my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. Your excellent presentation. Now we have almost only 8 minutes or 5 minutes. And this time is for everyone for Q&A. Somebody have question to the Kim?
Thank you for your sharing. It's inspired us. We have to look at backward what we work for inclusive education. I have 2 questions. The first one is you have a special education support center.
Yes.
When you started, because I didn't see it in your act. Okay. And the second question is how long is your compulsory education for regular student? It's also 15 years, similar to as long as a special education student. Okay, this is my second question. And the third, how did you identify LD? Because you say you use discrepancy criteria and use IQ and achievement.
Yeah.
And your criteria is below than 16%?
No.
16 percentile?
16 percentile. Below the 16 percentile.
Okay.
And deviation, big difference between IQ
Okay.
and achievement score. For
Okay.
example,
Okay.
maybe a grade is 3rd grade. If he or her achievement is level of the maybe 1st grade, 2 grade difference is big.
Okay.
Yeah, so those.
Okay, thank you.
And IQ is maybe about 90, but the score should be some 90 score, but the score is some IQ 70 score. Then IQ is 90, but 70 score, then difference. The both condition, difference, and what the 16%, below the 16 percentile. And the first case, compulsory education. Well, like regular education is 15 years old, but my voice is, and especially in the special education, compulsory education expanded more than regular students. So now is age 3 to age 17 is compulsory education. If they don't send their children to go to school, even during this age, it's illegal. Illegal. It's punishment. So, and the special education support center. Okay. It's established already 10 years ago. But last 3 or 5 years, the role of the special education supporting center is getting more and more. So, special education supporting center provide more service to the disabled students, like from the students in special schools to expanded to students in general schools too. So last 3 or 5 years, it is expanded a lot. So maybe it's not informed. A special education support center? Yes. Yeah. In the law is mentioned.
Thank you, Dr. Kim, for your speech about IE in Korea. You mentioned about the inclusive education teacher. Would you please explain more about it? Inclusive education teacher.
Say again, so I cannot hear you very well.
Okay. You mentioned about inclusive education teacher.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, would you please explain more about it?
Okay. In inclusive classroom, in Korea, first, teacher should have certification of special education teacher. But when we start inclusive education, not many special education teachers in the field. So, general teacher, they take her as a main teacher in inclusive classrooms. So also we provide incentive to them. So general teacher, without any certification, without any training program, they go to inclusive classroom and be a teacher. So government now, no more anymore, no more. So first, we give the options. Teacher in inclusive classrooms, they should get at least 30 credit of special education program in service training or pre-service training or in the undergraduate course or either one of it. So now extended 60 hours. But still we have problems. Less than 50% of the teachers in inclusive classroom, they don't have a certification or neither more than 30 years in service program. But we strongly push them get this, without those, service program. But so far that way. But last year, first time, established the Department of Inclusive Education is established in the college, especially college training elementary teachers, not secondary teacher. Now, some of the universities, at least 2 of the students, they trained inclusive education teachers. So after 4 years program, graduation, they can go to the elementary school, be a teacher in inclusive classrooms. Inclusive classrooms full-time. So among the 25 students, 2 or 3 disabled students. Mostly are LD or ED or BD or students. ID.
Professor, you mentioned that inclusive education is actually a Western concept. And then in one of your slides, you mentioned about the Korean model of inclusive education. I'm rather interested. What's in your mind in more concrete terms about this kind of so-called Korean IE model? Yes. I think this has implication to all the Asian countries. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Actually, that's why I come to have a presentation here to learn more about, other countries, other Asian leading countries, Japan and China. So I learned a lot yesterday. But At this stage, in Korea, so we just adopted the inclusive education like a system or programs, and from especially United States, Western countries. But when you implement about the inclusive education in Korea, we have problems because still inclusive education, the negative factors, problem, challenge problem, still those problems we have last 30 years, same problems, not solved at all. So what is the main reason for this? Because United States, they have a good program, inclusive program there, but it's not working very well in Korea. So we find the Korean way, but like fit into the Korean culture, like especially competition program. How can we reduce the competition program? Change to cooperative. So we said the standard model is like a system and curriculum as we use it. We developing and like testified in the classroom nowadays. It will be evaluated with the government support, give a fund to manage those classrooms. But it's very complicated. But main one is how to fit into our system, our educational system, and our cultures. So it maybe output will be coming out 2017. Then maybe evaluate the program. Also, if the program worked very well, then we disseminate this inclusive model to the other schools, all the nations. Over the nation. So I cannot say what is it exactly, but still we are working. Today I bring the problems, challenges, no solution for that. I cannot say solution for do this way, but still working. I think same thing in other countries too. I'm sorry to answer very clearly, but.
Okay. Because of the time limitation, we need to stop here. Although the inclusion is international trend, but we found there still have some challenge or issue need to克服哈。So sorry. But through the discussion, we learn each other from Korea, China, Japan, Hong Kong, Taiwan. We learn more. And I think hopefully the inclusion policy will more and more good. Thank you very much.